I'm enjoying the music.
Yes.
It's got a very Disney park theme-esque.
I just want to get this out of the way. The fact that you text me and Matt to wear hoodies and then you don't wear a hoodie. Like, I thought you were going to do a WNBA hoodie and we were all doing this thing.
Don't try to draw me into your twinsies thing going on here just because you showed up in what Matt wears all the time.
Yeah, this is stolen swag, 100%.
Right?
I was like,
don't try to get me involved. I had nothing to do with this.
That looks really, really comfortable, Matthew.
I know, but you do want to share with the people that Matt is fully dressed from shoulders to shoes, and you.
We'll do it later in a segment. I'll go in front of the court.
Okay, all right. I'm just saying you're going to have to see what else Richard is wearing now. That's a tease. Welcome to The Jump. I'm joined by NBA champions. I've got the co-host of All the Smoke podcast on that side, Matt Barnes, our 2016 champ who made 4 NBA Finals appearances, Richard Jefferson. We will get into a game of Can I Have a Word in just a moment. But first, all right, it's official. One of the most unusual regular seasons in the NBA's 75-year history is in the books, with the play-in game set to start tomorrow and the rest of the bracket in action starting this weekend. It's funny, there isn't really a nickname for the NBA playoffs the way there is with March Madness. No one calls what's about to happen the big dance. And yet, in this season's finishing kick, we still saw several teams trying to pick their partners.
That's trash.
Hey, you're serious, right?
In the East, the Bucks could have intentionally lost their recent regular season games versus Miami. That would have let them avoid a first-round playoff matchup with Jimmy Butler and the Heat, the team that, of course, upset them in the bubble last year. But instead, Giannis and company leaned into that smoke and now will indeed face the Heat in the first round. Meanwhile, in the West, bit more complicated. For the first time in franchise history, the Jazz clinched the best overall record in the NBA, which in turn locked the Suns into the second seed. As for the 3 spot, well, just a few days ago, the Clippers appeared relatively set for that, which likely would have put them on either a first or second round collision course with the Lakers, and just in the generally tougher side of the West bracket. So what did the Clippers do? Well, friends, they spent this weekend losing to the Rockets and the Thunder, 2 teams that themselves have been tanking so hard that in order to pull this off, the Clippers last night had to sit Kawhi and Paul George and Marcus Morris and Rajon Rondo and DeMarcus Cousins and Nick Batum. Starting center Ivica Zubac wanted to keep his consecutive game streak alive, so Ty Lue let him for 6 seconds. He then sat the rest of the game. And hey, it worked. The Clippers are now officially the 4 seed. Although, as I said on the show a couple times last week, if I'm the Clippers, I would have wanted to play the Lakers in the first round when the crowds at Staples Center are still pretty limited. LeBron's still working his way back from that ankle injury. Sure enough, actually, we saw LeBron's ankle flare again last night. Watch this twist here in the fourth quarter against the Pels. LeBron did not return to the game after this, but afterward he said he will feel fine enough to play on Wednesday. He's going to be in that game when the Lakers will face, Steph Curry and the Warriors in that West play-in game. And speaking of, Steph just ridiculous again last night. He wrapped up his second career league scoring title with a 46-point performance in which he outscored the entire rest of the Warriors starting lineup altogether. Really, Steph is so hot right now that Wednesday night's game should be an absolute dogfight, with the winner sliding into the 7th seed and the loser getting another game to fight for 8th, which has some irony, because if it's the Lakers who end up sliding to 8, guess where they'd end up? Yep, on the Clippers side of the bracket. Turns out this pick your partner stuff can be dicey. No wonder we don't use the big dance nickname for the NBA. Instead, maybe we just refer to these next few months as survival of the fittest, because it's going to be a rumble, and I can't wait. And with all that, gentlemen, all of the machinations, can I have a word? This is our game where we give you topics, you describe them in one word. So I want to start with the play-in tournament in general. Remember, it was criticized by LeBron, Luka, Mark Cuban.
I don't remember which one was first.
Others this season. I'm telling you, based on events just described from this weekend, the play-in delivered some great late-season drama. We've seen less resting late this season, teams fighting to stay out of that 7-10 range in each conference. So, Richard, can I have a word for the idea of the play-in tournament?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I got, dang. Oh, yeah.
I know, using a pen is complicated.
What? Oh, outstanding-ish. Outstanding-ish. That's why.
I don't know if that's a word.
It's not a word, but that's what makes it so much fun. It's outstanding because obviously it did what it was supposed to do. It got the teams in the bottom part a little bit more focus. And then after that, Golden State Lakers, I don't know. You don't necessarily want those in the first couple.
Mine is from a fan's perspective, which I am now. Ooh, I'm ahead. Am I not?
Boom.
That's 2 words.
I mean, his 2 words are better than your 2 words.
Yeah.
At least his 2 words are real English. Yours are
I
like,
love it from a fan's perspective, but as a player's perspective, you heard players speak out on it. I've been a 7 or an 8 seed, and you bust your tail to get to that spot and think, okay, you can relax and then focus on your series. Now you got to worry about this play-in game, and this is a dangerous situation for the Lakers, particularly because Steph Curry is playing the best basketball of his career, Draymond is on point, and the Lakers are not healthy. So we will have to see what happens, but like I said, from a fan standpoint, which I am now, I love it.
Well, I mean, look, in a way, though, it also can kind of give you a little more to play for, right? Forget that. But look, whether it's losing in the first round, which most 7 and 8 seeds do, or, hey, we made it to this part of the play-in. It's kind of an accomplishment if you're fighting in that bracket to make it to 7 or 8 versus 9 or 10. And then winning on Wednesday night. I think whoever wins, it will feel like an accomplishment. It'll feel like a big deal. Now, for the Lakers and Warriors, these are guys that have seen championships.
Right.
I don't think they're like, oh, my God, I want a play-in game. I'm not saying that. But for teams in general, in terms of this format, I think for, say, the Wizards, who were fighting on the East Side to just get in, if they can win a play-in game and get themselves...
Why did you mention the Wizards? This is the issue with this. And
Matt
remembers this when there were teams that were winning 50 games and not making it to the postseason, 49 games. So sometimes the 7 seed could be one of the best teams in the league. There could be a 3-game difference between 7 and 2, and it could go in a tiebreaker. So all of a sudden, this 7 seed... You were in potential of not making the postseason when you were a game and a half away from 2.
Right.
So that's where it gets. That's where it gets a little dicey, in my opinion, because these teams and these conferences can be so loaded. So I think the 8 is where it should be, and then 7 should be safe, in my opinion.
Okay.
I just think, and we're talking about the Lakers. I mean, I think for the Lakers, although they don't want to be in it, I think this is going to be a possible 2 good, 1 game, but possibly 2 to kind of get warmed up before you go into that first round series, because they haven't had guys together. Guys have been hurt. So we'll talk about this more later, obviously, but as a player, I understand the frustration for sure.
I get that. I do want to get your guys' take on the Clippers. They made sure their players were rested this weekend, right? I mentioned all the DNPs. I mean, come on, guys. Both games were lost, and I can't even do the rest of this intro. Look, can I have a word for the Clippers this weekend? Let's start with Matt.
Strategic.
Okay.
Which means a lot of different things. It means smart. It means rested. It means there's no excuses now. You're going to be rested. You're going to be focused on whoever you have to play. Whether people want to say they avoided the Lakers, that's, who really knows. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to line up a crash course for an all-LA Western Conference finals, hopefully. I think that's what everyone wants to see. So I just think it was very strategic on their part.
See, this is my thing. If I would have known somebody else was going to write our words, then I would have picked, strategic. I just was never going to spell that. So I picked smart. So smart.
How about strategery?
Strategery, because
strategist.
Okay, look, at the end of the day.
You just made me drop my pen in my, look at this.
Well, Richard's mad because they wrote our words early this time instead of letting us, because he drew happy faces last time. I had to think, look, at the end of the day, I think this is the right move. Teams have done this throughout history. I was one of the rare teams that was a 7 seed that beat a 2 seed before. So I like it. Look, Clippers would be a great matchup. To the Clippers, they're saying, hey, we're not running from the Lakers, but we would much rather play them later. Give yourself some more time, whether it's Serge Ibaka, Rondo, give those guys more time to get acclimated to what they're doing. And yeah, the Lakers, if they're at their best, then you're going to have to beat them or go through someone that did.
I mean, look, I don't know the exact status of Kawhi Leonard's foot. So it's possible that this was not so much about oh my God, we're so scared of the Lakers, and more about, hey, if we play the defending champions, we also want to be healthier. And that I understand. I do think, first of all, if the Lakers fall to 8th, which you guys just talked about how Steph Curry is, that could definitely happen, right? So if the Lakers fall to 8th, then they are back in the same side of the bracket, although not till the second round. I have just been saying all week, and I heard Jared Dudley say it last night in the post-game press conference, the first round is probably where the Lakers will be more vulnerable, right? The crowds here in California at Staples Center still pretty limited. I think right now they're at 11% capacity. We expect that to change throughout the playoffs. Capacity is going to go up. And if the Lakers and Clippers play each other, I'm not making a value judgment here. I'm just telling you that every time we have seen Lakers-Clippers games, even if they're Clippers home games,
Laker game,
the stands are full of Lakers fans. You played for both.
I played, yeah, exactly. So it's always going to be a Laker advantage. No matter what colors or what's covered up inside, it's going to be a Laker advantage. So I completely agree.
Right. So you will have every home game every game rather, of a Clippers-Lakers series, if it happens later in the playoffs, possibly feeling like a Lakers home game in a way that the first round series wouldn't. LeBron, as I mentioned, just tweaked his ankle again last night. I don't know how he's going to move
calling it now.
around.
Lakers and Clippers won't meet.
You don't think? So you think that even
who's not going to get there?
Yeah.
Hey, look, that's for everybody else to argue about. I'm just saying, Lakers and Clippers is not happening.
Well, that's what happened last year, right? We thought they were on this collision course, and the Clippers did not get there. We will have to see what happens this year and to see if their strategery pays off. Coming up, friends, we're going to talk a little bit about the 2021 Hall of Fame class, because that was also announced this weekend along with the enshrinements. We will react to the newest Hall of Famers next. First, though, time for our distant replay. This date, 1993, some guy, I think he wore red and the Bulls Michael Jeffrey Jordan.
Over 2. I don't know what the second contest was really going to do there.
Nothing. Same thing as the first contest.
By the way, we are getting into the week that is normally starting to be like conference, end of second round conference finals. So we're going to have some great distant replays coming up.
Ooh.
He did the Cavs wrong.
Look at Phil.
So many.
Indeed, Kawhi. Indeed. Make perfection. You've seen it 100 times. It also helps to be playing a team that is trying not to win. Miss showing off. Here comes Kyle Guy. Showtime, baby.
Uh-oh.
I mean, maybe.
Oh, Buddy and Guy. Oh, no.
Is next year going to be different for the Kings, Matt?
Hey, look, I did this in the Garden one time. I didn't miss it, but I went and got my steps right. And as soon as I do it 1-on-0, the ball just trickles out of bounds. So I did it in the Garden. Don't feel bad, Guy.
Is it going to be different for the Kings next year? I don't think so. But on their behalf, they have new management. You want to give them time to figure out what they can do. But it's Sacramento's a tough market.
They just had new management a couple years ago.
It's an open door policy.
So this is a new. So they got the new management. They got the new management.
The Sacramento Kings, we have an open door policy, might not mean what they might think it means, according to Matt. All right, let's move on. That's tremendous. Make equity. Back on April 18th, a fan told Dame that his house was in jeopardy if Portland didn't win 42 games and that he needed Dame. Dame said, say less.
Say less.
Portland went on to lose 5 straight, but then won 10 of their last 12 games.
To save the house.
They had 42 even.
Wow.
The fan may have been fabricating, but still, Richard.
He said he wanted to see the receipts. Dame wanted to see the receipts. Look, at the end of the day, if I got to pick somebody to save my house, Dame is on that list. Dame is on that list.
We'll get to that later in the show.
I'm worried if this guy is married with kids. If you're willing to bet your family's house on some playoffs, some Portland Trailblazer wins,
people have made worse bets.
They have, but that is Dame's point about say less. Don't do this and put yourself in that position. Miss Height. Karl Anthony Towns drives in. Packs it over. Boban!
Oh!
Now, earlier in the weekend, Jake Layman dunked it all over Taco Fall.
Let me see, Jim. If you catching bodies, you got to count the big men.
Yeah.
Don't tell me you dunked on a guard.
I feel for anyone who is, as both Boban and Taco are, in the 7'4" range. I mean, it would be nice.
You feel for them?
Well, it would be 2 feet taller than me. But my point is that you are a target. It's like you guys talked about Sean Bradley in past highlights. People want to go make
be
that
ready.
shot.
Yeah.
You're 7'4" and you make the NBA. Be ready.
That's your job. Your job is to stop people from doing that, and so our fun is to get to do that. So it's part of it.
Again, I wouldn't know. Let's take a look at today's magic moment, brought to you by Walt Disney World. The next Hall of Fame class announced over the weekend. Our guy Paul Pierce, we miss you, Paul. Chris Bosh, who will be on our show this week. Chris Webber, it's about time. Ben Wallace, it's about time, are the headliners. Here's a full look at all the inductees. Richard, when you look at the names, you played against most of them.
Including Bill Russell.
What do they all have in common to you? And Matt, I'll ask you the same.
No, I just think it's greatness. Like, I grew up in Phoenix, so seeing Cotton Fitzsimmons, seeing that name, which was an iconic name when I grew up, and Tony Kukoc deserving, Rick Adelman, all the great Portland teams and what he did in Sacramento.
Right.
There's just Jay Wright, obviously, Yolanda Griffith. There's so many names on there that it's just like everyone is deserving, and congratulations.
You've reached the pinnacle. I mean, obviously, hats off to this last 2020 class that was inducted this weekend. Congratulations, especially Paul, Chris, guys we played with, Chris Bosch, and then, Chris Webber kind of being a mentor and a big brother to me. Really happy because I think he's been on the fridge for a long time when he should have already been in the Hall of Fame. So
amen. We said it on Friday's show. I like it. We were 2 days ahead of the announcement, Matt.
Yeah, we knew something.
And by the way, Big Ben, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. You got to be in the Hall of Fame.
And he came from an HBCU, too.
And when defense was important.
Where
it's like, it's like 90 points is what the goal was, and he's going to stop you from getting that 90.
Yeah, right.
So and Chris Bosch, say whatever you want. This man should have been first ballot. I understand, but there's
please, let's get rid of that qualifier. Say whatever you want. He should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. Now, it's possible that there was a decision, hey, we don't want to put him in with the Kobe KG Duncan class.
And that's fair.
But that's not a knock on him.
It's not a knock on him. In my opinion, it's a knock on.
And we don't know what they made that decision.
I'm just going to say it is a knock on the decision makers. Don't take away an accomplishment for someone to make it a better advertised class. Because Chris Bosch belongs in that class as the Kobe Bryants, the Tim Duncans, the Kevin Garnett's. He belongs there.
Well, we just show Paul Pierce. I think sometimes, because obviously we miss Paul, and Paul will say some wild stuff from here and there, but I think he's one of the most underrated small forwards we've ever seen in the game. Rich and I both had to guard him for a long time. He was a killer, big shot maker, shot taker, dog, talk trash. Paul was a killer, and I don't think he gets enough credit today for how good he was.
He called game.
He called game.
He called game.
No. The one thing I'll say about Paul is that he was athletic, but he wasn't super athletic.
Right.
He was a shooter, but he wasn't like Ray Allen, and he just had such a versatile game, clutch, grinded out. Just so much respect for him and what he accomplished, because he taught me a lot of lessons very early on in my career.
He was one of my favorite players to cover. He was one of my favorite players to work with. We miss him here at the Jump tremendously. And I will say about Tony Kukoc, brought in by the International Committee. So I was wondering if you thought Michael and Scotty would show up to heckle, do what they did during the Olympics? No.
But Tony deserved.
They got their point across.
Yeah, you talk about the greatest Bulls.
Tony absolutely deserves to be in there through that international committee. All right. The bad news, the regular season is over and the playoffs don't start for basically a week until this weekend. The good news, we've got play-in basketball starting tomorrow. We preview it after the break. Keep it locked. Today's pregame at SportsCenter at 7 o'clock Eastern. Welcome back to The Jump, presented by Dell. I'm Rachel Nichols, still joined by these two. After much anticipation, the play-in tournament seeds locked in, gentlemen. So let's start in the West, where the Lakers, as we've mentioned 106 times already, will face off with the Warriors. The winner securing the 7th seed in the conference. Now, the Grizzlies and Spurs, they meet in a single elimination playoff game. So whoever loses that game, out. And then the winner will face the loser of Lakers-Warriors for the 8th seed. So, Matt, let's start with that 9-10 game in the West. What are your expectations for Grizzlies-Spurs?
This is a new Grizzlies team, young team, new head coach to the experience versus one of the greatest coaches of all time in Popovich. So I like this young, exciting Memphis team. If this is a 7-game series, I'm going with San Antonio. But for one game, I'm going to take the youth and go with Memphis.
Oh, this is tough. I think with Jackson back and the way they're playing, Valanciunas is playing great. Having Jackson is such a important part because he's a stretch four, he's a big, he's like athletic, he does so much. So I'm gonna go with the Grizzlies in a 1-game situation. I'm not picking against the Spurs, but in a 7-game, like you said, I think like Pop could tactically take some.
Okay, so this is an interesting question, though. If you decide one team has the coaching advantage, and that, by the way, is no knock, it's just saying
You're going against
Greg Popovich is possibly the greatest coach of all time, depending on what part of the country you live in. Do you think it's more of an advantage in a one lose and you're out game because the better tactical or more experienced tactical coach can give you a look you're not expecting?
No.
Or do you think it's at the adjustments later in the series?
That's it. It's in-game adjustments, and that's what makes some coaches good to great, being able to in-game adjust. And I think Pop can coach his team to a win with all kinds of adjustments and taking away what they're good at. But if you only got one shot at it, It's really
we've seen 60-win coaches lose jobs. We've seen Coach of the Years lose jobs because you got into the postseason and you didn't have the ability to make adjustments. So I think that's a 7-game situation. One game, the young horses, and we're going to go out there with nothing to lose. So, and you're playing against the Spurs, I think. 7-game Spurs, 1-game situation. I'd go with the Grizzlies.
Okay, all right. So, Matt, what are your expectations for Lakers-Warriors?
Ooh, same situation. I think over a 7-game situation, I think LeBron and them would be too much. But the way Steph is playing right now, the fact that LeBron had a minor tweak, even though he says it's fine, they're not all the way in rhythm. This is really a coin flip to me. I mean, Steph Curry's playing the best basketball of his life right now. Draymond is right there with him as far as keeping this team going. And this team is just playing off of energy. Everyone thought Steph was going to be exposed this year. And he has no one this year, and he's come out to possibly be the MVP, led the league in scoring. So they're going against the hottest player in the world right now, and the Lakers better be ready.
Woo! So I think the only reason why I think that the Lakers win this game is because, not saying you can take away Steph, because you can't. It's been proven you can't take away Steph, but what you can do is make others beat you more than you normally would. So if the other guys step up, if Draymond steps up, if you get guys like Kent Bazemore, if you get other guys that have a 15, 17-point game, then I think they win. But if you're just going to look for Wiggins, if you just get guys that are just like, Steph's going to score 40 and take us there, I think the Lakers, because their size and all that. But I think the Warriors win the next game, no matter who wins.
Right.
And I think the Lakers win and get the 7th spot.
What do you think about offensively in terms of, can the Lakers have enough firepower at this point right now, with guys still coming back and feeling each other out, to keep up with if Steph does manage to go off for another 45 or so?
The size. I think that Lakers size in a one-game situation, their interior. You got Drummond. You're starting to see the impact that he can have with Anthony Davis and LeBron James in there. And again, they do have a couple of guys that can run around. KCP, Caruso. They've got guys that can at least try and run around and chase Steph. I don't think they have many guys on their roster that can handle Anthony Davis or LeBron James. So it's like, we can't just look at Steph and say he's outstanding and not look over at Anthony Davis and LeBron. It's like, well, who do they have to try and match up with those two? And I don't really think they have anyone on their roster.
I think what RJ says is important. Can Wiggins or Oubre or someone else step up and be that second store that Clay would have been? Yeah, I think that's the key, because even if Steph goes off for 45 points isn't going to win the game. You're going to need some more firepower.
Yeah, if he outscores the starting lineup like he did in this last game,
the rest of his starting
Golden State Warriors weren't winning. And that's not a knock on the Warriors or Steph, but if he outscores the starting lineup like he did, they'll lose that game.
But if they're shooting the ball like they've been shooting and playing, this is going to be, and this is again why as a fan I love the playing, because this is excitement. This is just leading up to the play.
You like it because you're not in it.
Exactly.
I do want to get to the East. The Celtics facing the Wizards, with the winner securing the 7th seed and a matchup with the Brooklyn Nets. Now, the Pacers and Hornets are the ones meeting in the lower single elimination game, with the winner then facing the loser again of Celtics Wizards for the 8th seed. So, Richard, let's start with, again, the lower single elimination game. What are your expectations for Pacers Hornets?
Look, I like the Hornets. I like the Hornets in this. They've had this positive energy about them all year. The Pacers have had some little bitty drama. They have talent. They've had injuries. They've had a ton of stuff. But this Hornets team and their energy, the way they play, and they play together. So matching up against, this is a team that's had multiple 25 assist nights. You don't know who to stop, who to key on. There's no head to the snake. And so I like them over Indiana.
I think everything that Richard spoke to speaks to who LaMelo Ball has been to this team. He's brought energy, he's brought excitement, he's brought leadership from a young kid. And keep it real, although injuries are part of the game, if he doesn't get hurt, they're not even in this playing situation. I think they're secured probably at number 6 at the worst playing spot. But I agree, I'm taking the young Hornets in this matchup.
No, it's a reason he's most people's rookie of the year, because
is he yours?
Rookie guard doesn't. We will discuss that on the show later this week. I'm going to give you my answer, but I'm not going to give it today. That's also a tease. But yeah, that we almost never see a rookie, especially a rookie guard, make that kind of impact and just completely shift a team's fortunes. I'm curious to see if the outcome of that play-in game, and that is another reason to sort of keep track of it, impacts whether the Pacers let their coach go at the end of this season. Something that Adrian Wojnarowski has been reporting on is just right there as a question. All right, Matt, let's talk Celtics Wizards.
Oh, my Celtics.
Today, Bradley Beal said his strained left hamstring will not be 100%. He will just have to manage it in Tuesday's playing game. So knowing that, and also these teams have a little mini rivalry. It's not Celtics-Lakers, but remember we had the all-black guys all dressed in black for one game. They had the back and forth words of word in the playoffs. So what do you expect?
I've been a fan of the Celtics all season, thinking that they were going to turn the corner eventually with their experience and their young stars and really start climbing up the Eastern ladder. That didn't happen. I think losing Jaylen Brown is a huge part. So to me, it comes down to, I think Bradley Beal, if he can manage, which I think he will, him and Jason Tatum cancel each other out as far as because they're two great scorers. Who's going to do on Boston's side what Russell Westbrook has been doing this year, which has been terrorizing the league as far as numbers go, and he's got his team in this position. I mean, hats off to Russ because I think they sent him there to die, and he came out better than ever.
Frank and Russ.
Exactly. So excited for him. But to me, I think Washington pulls this out, and it's been a heck of a run for them because at the beginning of the season, we were talking about, they need to trade Brad. They're wasting this time, and this team came together, did what they're supposed to do, and it has made a nice run.
Now, Matt, calm down. They're still the 10th seed. So they still
I'm just talking about playing.
Just playing. Okay, that's
all I'm talking about.
They still should trade. They should still trade. Our 8th seed. It sounds like they're 10th. Anyways, this is what I think. I think if Bradley Beal is healthy, without a doubt, it's the Wizards. But you don't know. And he went out and tried to play, couldn't really move. We already saw the numbers and him possibly trying to catch Steph for the scoring record. So if they're healthy with no Jaylen Brown, it's the Wizards. And then after that, it becomes a toss-up, to tell you the truth, because you don't know who's going to step up for the Wizards. Who is their third guy that's going to step up in this situation? So if Bradley Beal can give you 15 points, if he can go out there and make it through a game, give you 15, 18 points, I think it's the Wizards.
I mean, I'm very interested to see what Russell Westbrook does in this game because you guys know how I feel about him. I think that the slander on him is
ridiculous.
People just don't understand what he brings to a team if you're still criticizing him. And if you look at even his season this season, he was nursing an injury for the first big chunk of the season. He had tough time in the playoffs in the bubble because he was nursing an injury. So not understanding that and then seeing how he has impacted the team once he is healthy, and especially once they got over all their COVID issues. That whole preamble aside, I will also say sometimes he tries to do too much in playoff games. We've seen it, again, over and over and over again. So I'm curious to see with Brad not being 100%, which Russell Westbrook we get. I think the fact that Scott Brooks is there as the coach and he has managed and worked with Russ, not just in D.C., but in Oklahoma City, will have an impact on that. But we'll have to see. It's another good
But the bad part about the Eastern side, it doesn't matter who gets 7 and 8. They're going to get smacked in the first round.
That's why the playing games are interesting, because that will be our early competition there. Coming up, it's the Jump's regular season awards. As RJ noted, we will be handing them out throughout this whole week. And today, I will finally achieve my dream of having the MVP being for the most valuable best player in the league, and whoever had the best season this year, which is a different question, being its own award. We'll discuss. MVP should go back to what it was earlier in the league's history, awarded to the player who's simply the best guy in the league. The guy, if you absolutely had to win a game to save your house, who would be your first pick? Meanwhile, though, we should also have an award for best season. The guy whose stats this season jumped off the page. And again, we've had leagues like the NHL, like Major League Baseball, like the NFL, change their awards to recognize that these are two different things, who had the best season versus who's the best player. And as for who had the best season in 2021, well, here's what LeBron James thinks. Take a listen.
We just got to play to the best of our ability. We got to play Lakers basketball. We got to defend at a high rate. We're playing versus, in my opinion, the MVP of our league this year, and Steph. So, we got to be, prepared for everything that they have. They got championship DNA as well, and they've been there. They know what they know what it takes and what it feels like to be in pressure games. So, we got to be ready for that opportunity and for that pressure.
He's so smart. He's so smart.
It's so annoying.
Just buttering him up.
Just buttering. Look, and he's telling the truth.
Right.
But he didn't have to say that.
You think this is all a ploy that when Steph is considering his extension this summer?
No. Steph legitimately.
Everything he said was true, too. What LeBron said was true.
So what is he buttering?
Just buttering him up.
Because it's like you're about to play a dude in the postseason. You don't want to boost their heads up. You don't want to give them anything good or bad. But it's just look.
Okay, so if we all lived in my world and we separated out MVP, which we'll talk about in a minute, is who's the guy, if you had to win one game, who would you pick first? That's separate. This season, who had the best season this season, either statistically or just do you think helped his team the most this season?
Steph Curry, without a doubt. It's not even close who had the best season. right? Like Matt brought it up. Steph answered so many questions, and Warrior fans would get sensitive. What are you talking about this? It's like, yo, Steve Kerr came out and said it last year. Hey, we're not going to go push Steph out there and play him 40 minutes like he's James Harden or Giannis. Like, no, the way he plays, that's just too difficult. But this season he comes back, no Clay again. He goes out there and plays a ton of games and carries this team. They had a ton of talent, but carries this team averaging 30-something points and leading the league in scoring. Answered questions that, you know, even his greatness still needed to be answered. Could he just carry the load, and he did that?
I mean, Steph's my guy, too. I also have Joker and Embiid in that conversation. But, you know, considering what Steph lost, you lose KD, then you lose Clay, and then this is, again, the year he was supposed to be exposed. And I said at the beginning of this season, we're going to get to see Steph's version of James Harden basketball this year. They play different, but as far as you being the first, second, and third option, that's what Steph was this year, and he definitely didn't disappoint.
Look, I think there's a case on either side, right? Steph and Draymond made this case. He said, look at the team we had last year. He said there's been some changes, but it's basically the same talent. But without Steph and the record he said that we had versus the record with Steph playing. But with Jokic, the numbers are just off the charts, guys. The efficiency, the advanced stats only make him more of a candidate. If you're looking for more of that narrative vibe, what he did with this team after Jamal Murray went down, the fact that he played in every single game in a season where, look, it wasn't everyone's fault if they were out for chunks of time, but it happened, right? And his defense, which had been a weakness before, he made a concerted effort to change. And when I had a conversation with him a few weeks ago, you know, we keep talking about this new slim look. It's not just making him, you know, more energetic and a little bit, he said, just a little bit faster. But it's really helped him defensively. It's had a lot more energy and a lot more on the defensive side. So I understand both cases. It interests me that players have pretty consistently talked about Steph. Now, that is a separate conversation, though.
Not MVP, people.
Than MVP in our world, in this discussion. So to me, this should kind of call back to how the MVP, before we had access to all of these stats, there was kind of a consensus on, hey, who's the best guy in the league right now? If you had to win a game tomorrow, who is the person you would pick? And for a long time, it was Michael Jordan, but he didn't win all those MVPs. I think he should have in those years. And if we had a separate award for best season, we wouldn't have seen the split that we have. So take it to today. And this is me basically asking you guys, who is the best player in the NBA?
Go to Matt first.
Man, you are a coward. Matt, if you had to like we saw, Damian Lillard and that fan earlier said, I'm counting on you for my house. Right? And we said, well, if you're counting on someone for your house, Dame is a good guy. If you had to save your family, save your house by winning a basketball game.
Kevin Durant.
That is who you'd pick.
Taking Kevin Durant.
Okay.
I think he was on the verge of slowly claiming that before he tore his Achilles. I think he was on a tear coming off those finals. The way he's been able to come back this year off this type of injury and still like he never missed a beat, still consistent, still efficient, still probably the most scary player in the game. So if I'm going to take one player, I'm taking Kevin Durant to save my family.
Oh, this is tough. And my words don't count nearly as much because I am associated with LeBron James. But to me, he's still the best player. Because you were saying, like Kevin Durant, he was on the verge. He was on the verge. He didn't get there. And the year he gets hurt, LeBron James wins the MVP, or wins the Finals MVP and wins a championship. And he's still the reigning Finals MVP. Right. And prior to the injuries to him and Anthony Davis, they were the number one ranked defense. They were the number one ranked team in the league. It looked like he was about to get his fifth MVP. So if you tell me the most valuable player, the best player on the planet, until someone gets past that verge, then to me it's still LeBron James. He's got to hold the title until someone just surpasses him in a way. And you don't just TKO the champ. You got to knock out the champ. You got to finish.